Hello and welcome to Courts Today. I am Urvashi Chauhan with your daily roundup of legal updates from across the country. In today's bulletin, we bring you major legal updates from across the country, from the Supreme Court questioning police's move to summon advocates for legal advice, to the Orissa High Court holding a tehsildar personally liable for an illegal demolition, and the Calcutta High Court commuting the death sentence of a man convicting of raping a minor. Here are the top legal developments you need to know. Make sure to watch till the end and do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Starting with an update on the dispute surrounding the consecration ceremony of the Arulmigu Subramanya Swami Temple in Tiruchendur, Tamil Nadu. The Supreme Court is set to hear on 1st July a petition filed by R. Sivarama Subramanya Sastrigal, the Vidayahar or traditional religious authority of the temple. He has challenged a judgment of the Madras High Court that upheld timing of the ritual fixed by an expert committee. The controversy began when the HRNCE department fixed the time for the ceremony as 6 a.m. to 6:47 a.m. on 7th July based on the recommendations of a committee comprising Agama scholars. The Vidayahar objected, claiming that this timing was inauspicious and that he had already specified a more auspicious time window, that is from 12:05 p.m. to 12:47 p.m. However, the court refused to interfere with the expert committee's decision. It noted that the Vidayahar had submitted 3 different timing charts without clearly marking which ones were drafts and which one was final. This lack of clarity, the court said, had created confusion and forced it to step in and appoint the committee. While upholding the committee's recommendation, the court clarified that this should not set a precedent for future cases. It also reaffirmed the traditional supremacy of the Vidayahar in religious matters, directing the temple to consult him in writing in future and for him to clearly mark whether the timing is a draft or final. The matter was mentioned before a Supreme Court bench of Justices K.V. Vishwanathan and N.K. Singh. The bench agreed to list the case for hearing on 1st July, although it declined the petitioner's request for an earlier listing. During the brief exchange, Justice Vishwanathan acknowledged the temple's religious importance and also referred to the High Court's direction that the Vidayahar's role must be respected. The case has now reached the highest court, raising a significant question. Who gets the final say in deciding sacred rituals? Religious authorities or court-appointed committees? In a strong worded rebuke, the Supreme Court today pulled up the Uttar Pradesh government for unlawfully detaining a man in Ghaziabad jail for 28 days despite a clear bail order from the court itself. The bench, comprising Justice K.V. Vishwanathan and Justice N.K. Singh, ordered the state of Uttar Pradesh to pay 5 lakh as provisional compensation to the prisoner. The reason for the delay? A mere clerical omission. The bail order mentioned Section 5 of the Anti-Conversion Law instead of Section 5 Subclause 1, which prison authorities claimed was enough to withhold the man's release. Taking serious note of this, the bench said personal liberty cannot be denied over irrelevant technicalities, especially when the identity of the prisoner and the charges are clearly mentioned in the order. The justices warned that such nitpicking is a serious dereliction of duty and questioned what message this sends when liberty is sacrificed over such minor errors. The jail superintendent appeared in person in the court while the DIG prisons joined virtually and assured the court that officers would be sensitized to prevent such incidents in the future. But the bench was not satisfied. It directed a judicial inquiry to be conducted by the principal district judge of Ghaziabad to probe whether this was a mere oversight or something more serious. The court observed that the prisoner had been denied liberty for nearly a month despite clear orders from 29th and 27th May orders. He was finally released yesterday only after the top court intervened. Calling the entire episode unfortunate and preposterous, the court remarked that liberty is too precious to be bartered away on useless technicalities. It warned that if the authorities continued to act in this manner, the cost imposed would be increased to 10 lakh. The case here raises a critical question and concern. How many other prisoners might still be languishing in jails due to such bureaucratic lapses? The Supreme Court's firm stance sends a strong message that liberty is not a clerical formality. In a significant development, the Supreme Court has strongly objected to investigating agencies summoning lawyers for advice given to clients, observing that such actions threaten the independence and autonomy of the legal profession. A bench of Justices Vishwanathan and N. Koteshwar Yogeshwar Singh said that allowing police or prosecuting agencies to directly summon advocates, especially those who have merely advised parties, would seriously undermine the legal profession and also jeopardize the independence of administration of justice. The court noted that the legal profession is not just any occupation but an integral component of the judicial system, and lawyers enjoy certain rights and privileges both as officers of the court and under statute. The confidential nature of communication between a lawyer and their client, the court said, must be preserved, and investigations cannot be allowed to infringe upon this privilege. The case was taken up after growing concerns in the legal community, particularly following a recent incident where two senior advocates of the Supreme Court were summoned by the Enforcement Directorate for legal advice provided to a client. Well, the summons were later withdrawn after public backlash and demands for judicial intervention. During the hearing, the court framed two legal questions. Can a lawyer be summoned solely for giving legal advice to a client? And if a lawyer's role extends beyond just legal advice, should judicial oversight be mandatory before any summons is issued? Given the broader implications of the professional privilege and due process, the court has now sought assistance from top legal authorities, including the Attorney General, Solicitor General, Bar Council of India, and presidents of SCBA and SCORA. Recognizing the seriousness of this issue, the matter has been referred to the Chief Justice of India, Justice B.R. Gavai, for appropriate orders and possibly even a constitution bench hearing. Moving ahead, the Calcutta High Court has commuted death penalty awarded to a man who was convicted for the rape and murder of a minor girl who worked as a domestic help at his residence. While affirming the trial court's finding of guilt, the division bench of justices Debangsu Basak and Mohammad Shabbar Rashidi noted that although the crime was grave, the convict had no prior criminal history, no history of mental illness, and had previously worked as a laborer. Citing the convict's age and potential for reformation, the court concluded the case did not fall within the rarest of the rare category that warrants capital punishment. The court did uphold the conviction, saying that the prosecution had proved the case beyond reasonable doubt. Let me tell you, the trial court had convicted the man for offences of rape, murder, and for aggravated penetrative sexual assault under the POCSO Act. The High Court reiterated that death penalty is reserved only for the most heinous cases where the possibility of reformation is ruled out. It also relied on the psychological evaluation, which found the convict mentally sound and socially stable. The court therefore disposed of the death reference and the appeal, converting the sentence to life imprisonment. Next, the Bombay High Court today raised crucial legal questions during a hearing on whether young lawyers can claim a monthly stipend from the Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa. A bench of Chief Justice Alok Aradhe and Justice Sandeep Marne was hearing a PIL filed by Ajit Vijay Deshpande, a law student at the time of filing the petition in 2021. The petition sought a direction to the Bar Council to pay 5,000 per month to junior lawyers across Maharashtra. While the judges personally agreed with the idea of a stipend, saying that even 45,000 might be needed in a city like Mumbai, they questioned the legal basis for such a demand. We agree with you in principle, but what is the legal right? How do we direct this? The bench asked. The court also questioned the public interest angle of the petition, noting that the issue mainly concerned lawyers and not the general public. The petitioner pointed out that the Delhi High Court had directed Bar Council of India to fix a minimum stipend. In response, it was submitted that the BCI currently recommends 20,000 in urban areas and 15,000 in rural areas, but these are just recommendations, not enforceable rights. Adding to the financial concerns, Advocate Uday Varunjikar, appearing for the Bar Council, told the court that the state government has refused to fund such stipend. He also informed that the enrollment fee had recently been slashed from 15,000 to 600, reducing the Bar Council's own revenue. After hearing both sides, the court adjourned the case for 2 weeks, asking the petitioners to establish if there is any statutory right for young advocates to demand stipends and whether the Bar Council has a legal obligation to pay it. In a stinging judgment against unlawful demolitions carried out in defiance of court orders, the Orissa High Court has held the state accountable for illegal destruction of a community center and directed the government to pay 10 lakhs in compensation. Notably, 2 lakhs of this amount is to be personally recovered from the salary of the concerned Tehsildar, whose role in the demolition was found to be deliberate and contemptuous of judicial authority. This case revolved around a community center that had stood on grazing land since the 1980s. It was reconstructed with public funds under government schemes and had been serving local welfare needs without objection for decades. However, in July last year, the government initiated encroachment proceedings. When the petitioners challenged the move in the High Court, they were directed to apply for regularization under the Odisha Prevention of Land Revenue Encroachment Act. They did so, but their application was rejected, prompting an appeal which was still pending. Despite the fact that the High Court had twice passed orders restraining the eviction, first on 29th November and again on 13th December, the authorities proceeded with demolition the very next morning. Shockingly, this happened just hours after the sub-collector had reserved his decision on the appeal, showing complete disregard for both judicial proceedings and constitutional norms. Justice Sanjeev Kumar Panigrahi, who delivered the judgment, called out the Tehsildar's conduct as a conscious and calculated departure from the standards expected of a public servant. The court said the demolition reflected a deeper constitutional failure and not just an administrative lapse, and that it amounted to executive overreach while the matter was sub judice. The court condemned what it described as growing trend of bulldozer justice, the use of state machinery to bypass due process and enforce decisions unilaterally. It has warned that force cannot precede legal reasoning in a democratic society governed by the rule of law. Referring to the Supreme Court's recent directives on demolitions, Justice Panigrahi clarified that these were not optional guidelines but binding mandates that had been blatantly ignored. The judgment emphasized that what was demolished was not just a structure but also the dignity of citizens who had chosen to approach the courts rather than resort to confrontation. The court further directed that departmental proceedings be initiated against the Tehsildar and has asked the Chief Secretary of the state to issue strict guidelines to prevent such illegal demolitions in the future. In a case that could have far-reaching implications on the legality of past arrests, the Supreme Court is likely to examine whether its landmark ruling in Pankaj Bansal versus Union of India, mandating that Enforcement Directorate must furnish written grounds of arrest, applies retrospectively or not. The issue rises from the challenge filed by State of Karnataka against a decision of the Karnataka High Court which held that Pankaj Bansal judgment would apply even to arrests made before 3rd October 2023, that is the date the judgment was delivered. The High Court had quashed the remand order in one such case and directed release of the accused on the grounds that the reasons for his arrest had not been adequately communicated in writing. During a hearing before a Supreme Court bench comprising Justices K.V. Vishwanathan and N. Koteshwar Singh, the state argued that the Pankaj Bansal ruling was clearly intended to apply only prospectively, as evident from the judgment itself, which stated that written grounds must be furnished henceforth. Karnataka also placed reliance on the Ram Kishore Arora case, where the Supreme Court had clarified that non-service of arrest grounds prior to Pankaj Bansal ruling would not render those arrests illegal, at least in the context of PMLA cases. The facts in the current matter involve an accused arrested in March 2023 for IPC offences not under PMLA. He later approached the High Court in 2025 seeking quashing of his remand. The High Court in its ruling held that procedural fairness was violated and cited Vihan Kumar and Prabir Purkayastha judgments, where the post-Pankaj Bansal approach required written communication of arrest grounds. The court concluded that failure to do so infringed Articles 13(2), 21 and 22 clause 1 of the Constitution and ordered his release. However, the Karnataka government now argues that his arrest reasons as per the law prevailing at the time of the arrest, that is in February 2023, were provided to him. That the High Court wrongly applied rulings that came after the arrest and it misread Prabir Purkayastha judgment, which dealt with an arrest after the Pankaj Bansal judgment. According to the government, such a retrospective reading could open the floodgates, invalidating numerous arrests. The Supreme Court is now likely to decide if the Pankaj Bansal ruling is a new constitutional safeguard applicable only going forward or a principle that can be invoked to challenge past arrests as well. The next hearing in this case is scheduled for 26th June, that is tomorrow. Stay tuned. And lastly, the Delhi High Court has directed Google LLC to immediately take down a fake YouTube channel impersonating Anjana Om Kashyap, the managing editor of Aaj Tak, using her image, videos and deepfakes to mislead the public. Justice Pratibha M. Singh, hearing the case during court vacations, observed that the unauthorized use of Kashyap's identity and reputation violates her personality rights and poses a serious risk of misinformation. misinformation. The channel was using a deceptive name, Anjana Om Kashyap, along with fake news clippings to wrongfully imply association with Aaj Tak and Kashyap. The court granted interim relief to TV Today network, which runs Aaj Tak, stating that even if the content used is genuine, only the news channel or Kashyap herself holds the rights to disseminate it. If the content is fake, it could also wrongly implicate the news channel. The court further directed Google to disclose subscriber details of the person behind the fake channel within 2 weeks. It ordered Google to reveal any ad revenue earned by the impersonator within 4 weeks. The court has also mandated that any future fake channels flagged by the plaintiffs in this case must be taken down within 72 hours, failing which reasons must be provided. Well, the matter will now be heard on 11th August. Stay tuned with us.